So this is a sikha where the Rebbe, in addition to explaining and talking about Parshas Kedoshim, he also speaks about the connection with Parshas Achrei. So even though it's officially a sikha on Parshas Kedoshim, but it's very appropriate because it also connects it, like our parsha we read this week. We read Acharei and Kedoshim together, so the Rebbe explains the connection between Parshas Achrei and Parshas Kedoshim. But first he begins with the idea of Kedoshim. B'toichin atzivui de Kedoshim tiyum, matzinu beis pirushim harachaykim zemezem min hakotzel hakotzel. The Rebbe points out that in Kedoshim tiyu there are two extremes about what the Torah wants from us to define holiness. Aleph, b'pashtas kodesh mufresh u'muvdal. What is the meaning of holiness? Holiness is very difficult to define. So the Mefarshim explain, and the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya. Actually, just now in the not too long ago in Chitas we spoke about this. That kodesh means something that is separated and removed. Even other words that are related to it, like Kedushin. Kedushin is marriage between a man and a woman because now she becomes separated and removed from the rest of the world and she's only for this person. So Kedusha means something that's above and outside of the normal realm of things. In being Kodosh, you can have different levels of being Kodosh. But the Kedoshim Tiyu that we're talking about that a Jew should be holy is actually on a level similar to Hashem's holiness. How do we see that? Because it says, Kedoshim Tiyu ki Kodosh Oni. Because I am holy. So that means Hashem is making an association. Why should you be holy? Because I am holy. If there was no association between my holiness and the holiness of Hashem, how do you say Ki Kodesh Oni? How do you give it as a reason why should a Jew be holy? Because I, Hashem, am holy. There's no connection. But rather, Shalachein Kodesh Oni Atam Vazbar L'Kedoshim Tiyu. Which means, how is Hashem's holiness? In what type of way is Hashem's holiness? Aliyah be'ilu yachar ilu ad l'tachlis ha'kedusha shalamayla mechol inyone abriya v'chol seder ishtalshlus. Like we said before, you could be holy and removed just from this world, from the physical things, from the mundane things. But then there are higher levels of holiness and higher level of holiness because there's many spiritual realms. And in every realm and in every level and in what's called the chain order of descent, you could be holy for that level and holy for a higher level and holy for a level beyond that. So that's one extreme of the word Kedoshim Tiyu. Then the Rebbe brings an interesting explanation, an interesting pirush of the Gemara on a similar pasuk that says in Parshas Shmini. Beis, the other extreme is Pirush HaGemara B'Kos V'Adoyme that says in Parshas Shmini, Limnida Nidan, it's similar to what says in our Parsha. Vehiskadishtem says the verse is Vehiskadishtem v'yisam Kedoshim. You shall sanctify yourself and you shall be holy. So the Gemara says like this: Vehiskadishtem, you should sanctify yourself. Elu Mayim Rashonim. This is the washing that we do before the meal when we wash for bread. That is one type of level of Hiskadishtem, you shall make yourself holy. And then following the words Viskadishtem, it says Vihiyisam Kedoshim, and you shall be holy. Elu Mayim Achroinim. This is going on the water that we pass over the tips of our fingers and over our lips before benching. That is all in Kedoshim and Hiskadishtem. So what do we see? That on the one hand, Kedoshim is talking about very, very holy, like Hashem's holiness, way removed from everything. On the other hand, we're talking about getting rid of filth and Tumah and impurity. Hainu shakadusha b'dvarim pshutim v'gashmim b'negei l'achila v'shtiyam shagam b'kos of zem mefarash tam atzivui ki Kodosh Oni. Why is it necessary to sanctify yourself that way before eating, that you wash your hands before bread, and that you pass your hands with water over your fingers and over your mouth after eating. It also has to do with Hashem's holiness. So how does one word and one concept contain in it both extremes? The holiness, that's Hashem's holiness, completely removed from this world, and also the holiness that has to do with the most physical things like eating and cleaning ourselves and purifying ourselves in relation to food. So the Rebbe is going to connect it based on the fact that Kedoshim follows Parshas Achrei. And not only that, but they are joined. We read them together most years. And there's one common theme that the Rebbe is going to say is between them. How do we know that they have a special connection? In the majority of years, even though some years we'll read Parshas Kedoshim separate, first we'll read Parshas Achrei, then we'll read Parshas Kedoshim in the following Shabbos. But the majority of years, the Rebbe says, 12 out of 19 years, which is the years of the years when we don't have a leap year. So whenever there's no leap year, which is 12 out of every 19 years, we read Achrei Kedoshim together. So he says, the fact that they have a connection, the fact that they're read together, means that there's a message for every person in their avodah. That we need to live with the times. Living with the times means living with the parsha of the week. So if the parsha of the week is joined together, so there must be a common denominator, a common message between Achrei, Mos, and Kedoshim, which has a lesson for us. Top of the next page, Shagam Hayra Shabazeh Mechuvenes Umasima L'chol Echad Ve'echad. The lesson that's derived from the fact that they are joined together is also something that is directed towards and is appropriate for everyone. Towards the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe is going to say how whatever level you're at, the holiest of persons or the most ordinary of Jews, the lessons still apply to both of us. Parshas Achrei has chalasa be'inyan shu tachlos hakedusha b'makim v'bizman v'bnei yodam. The Parshas Achrei is speaking about how one needs to deal with the Beis Hamikdash, especially it has to do with the laws of Yom Kippur. It deals with the Besigna Hayidua ba'olam shana v'nefesh. Talks about both in world, in location, the holiest place, in time, the most holiest place, and in person, the most holiest person, which is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, we have, we have Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol, in the Kodesh Kedoshim, come all together. That's what we've been talking about in the beginning of Parshas Achrei. Avoid the Kodesh Kedoshim, Yom HaKadosh Ayidei Kohen Gadol. So we have the holiest place, the holiest time, and the holiest person. The Inyan HaKedusha, so we're going from that holiness that we're talking about at the beginning of Parshas Achrei, it's now transmitted to Parshas Kedoshim. Hu gama ikir b'toichna shel Parshas Kedoshim, haschalasa Kedoshim tiyu ki Kodosh Oni. And not only the beginning of Parshas Kedoshim is the theme of holiness, but also Gam Karav L'Siyuma, close to its end. V'yisim li Kedoshim ki Kodosh Ani Hashem. V'nichpol b'toich ha-Parsha Vehiskadishtem v'yisim Kedoshim ki Ani Hashem Elokeichem. In the middle of the Parsha also. So at the beginning of the Parsha it talks about being holy. Almost at the end of the Parsha it talks about being holy. And in the middle of the Parsha it sticks it in about being holy. Va'ad shekol ha-Parsha kol inyan ha'ksuvim shebam nikras Kedoshim. The entire parsha is called by the name Kedoshim. And like the Rebbe always emphasizes, that whenever something is called by a certain name, that means that everything that has that name falls under the concept of that name. So since the entire parsha is called Kedoshim. So that means every part of the parsha, even those things that we may not think is Kedoshim, is also part of the holiness of Kedoshim. Hine mekiven the Kedusha zu shallah huzeru kolach v'ech misrol. He b'madrega gavoya kazu sheyesh la'erech v'shayches Kedusha the Kodosh Oni canal. We mentioned before that why do you have to be holy? Because I am holy. So that means that the holiness that we're discussing in this parsha is such a high grade of holiness that it's similar to and connected to the holiness of Hashem. Therefore, the question arises: it's overwhelming. We're talking about Hashem's holiness, and it's being demanded from us to be on a level of holiness like Hashem's holiness. How's that possible? How can I even dream of being on the level of holiness similar to Hashem's holiness? So he says, Umefarish hakasuv Kedoshim ad kedei Kedusha lakis tihiyu gam loshon avtocha ki Kodosh Oni mikiven shehu yizbarach Kodosh lachein kam kol echad ve'echad v'nei Yisrael shu chelik alcham emal mamish yochel v'lachein gam tzorich tiyu loshon tzivulis alois betachlas ha'iliyah de Kedusha. Every Jew is a part of Hashem above. Since we are a part of Hashem above, so just like Hashem is holy, therefore it's possible for us to be holy as well. We have that capability built in. It's part of our spiritual DNA that we have that holiness of Hashem within us. So therefore, it's both a command, tihiyu, you should be, and also it's a promise, tihiyu, you will be as holy as Hashem, because we have part of Hashem within us. Omnam Kedusha Nailazu the Parshas Kedoshim Doreshes Hachana Vagdama. But to be able to attain and to be able to reveal that holiness, there needs to be something to preface it. There needs to be an introduction. There needs to be something to bring that about. And that is V'hi nirmezes v'nilmedetz v'Parshas Achrei. That's Parshas Achrei about. Havoided Yom Kippurim Yom HaKadosh u'Makom Shu Kodesh HaKedoshim Shal Yoda Ba Kaparosam V'Taharosam Shebnei Yisrael Ad Asher Lifnei Havayat Taru. The Kohen Gadol, when he entered the holiest person in the holiest place, in the holiest day of the year, it wasn't just about himself. It was Lifnei Hashem Titaru, that all the Jewish people became purified through the Kohen Gadol on that holiest day of the year. There is an interesting explanation. Lifnei Havaya Titaru means before, in the presence of Hashem, you will become purified. But the Alter Rebbe explains, Chassidus explains, Lifnei Havaya Titaru means prior to, higher. A name is, after all, only something external. Hashem's essence is beyond his name. When the purity of a Jew occurs on Yom Kippur, it transcends even Hashem's ineffable name. It transcends even the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. It's Lifnei Havaya Titaru. That's how powerful the purity of Yom Kippur is. From that Achrei, from that Lifnei Havaya Titaru, that leads us in that we are able to experience the Kedoshim Tiyu, the being holy of our parsha. Zeh one Islam koyach v'yicholos ba'avodah the Kedoshim Tiyu sheyalu v'yagiu lisachet betachas Kedusha the Kodosh Oni, that I can connect with Hashem's holiness and bring Hashem's holiness into my life, that we should be holy as well. V'hinei meduber kvar sheshem ha'parsha meramez al toichen inyon. The Rebbe constantly emphasizes it, that the name indicates what it's about. The Rebbe always bases it off what it says in Sharichot Ve'emunah in Tanya, that the energy and the life force and vitality of every creation comes from its Hebrew name. So whatever it's called in Torah, or whatever a name parents give a child, their Hebrew name, that is their energy, that's their vitality. So therefore, the same thing, the names of Torah portions contain in it the content and the meaning of what that whole Torah portion is about. Inshallah, ba'akos v'lamdeinu b'tchilas Parshas Achrei, Harei hi merumezes b'shma Achrei Mois. The name Achrei Mois, after the passing, indicates this whole idea of the preparation and the enabling to go up very, very high in holiness. How is that hinted in the phrase Achrei Mois? Bir hadavar Achrei Mois pshutay k'mashmoi misyaches l'chol ha'meduber v'parsha hainu lahazores v'atzivuyim haboim la'achrei Mois Nadav and Avihu b'karvosam lifnei Havayim. It's relating all the different things that the Jewish people, especially the Kohanim, were commanded to be careful in after the passing away of Nadav and Avihu. So Hashem set down certain ground rules. How does a person have to act when they enter the Beis HaMikdash, when they enter the Mishkan? But there's a very interesting expression that the Torah uses about the passing of Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron. It says, B'karvosam lifnei Havaya, when they became close before Hashem. What does that mean, that they became close? Seemingly, if you read the verses in the simple sense, it seems to be that they did something wrong. So why does it say B'karvosam lifnei Hashem? So the truth is, they very much wanted to be very close to Hashem. But Hashem said, you belong down here. But they expired in their love and desire and yearning to be close to Hashem. Top of the next page. B'karvosam lifnei Havaya shehigiu l'kiruv gadol moed lahavaya la'ava v'tshuka atzuma la'kadosh baruch hu ad shegufam lo haya yachol lahachol gadol cheftza v'tshukasa shal haneshama ubo l'klois hanefesh mamish. Literally, their great love for Hashem, b'karvosam, they became close, led to them that their soul left their body out of the great love for Hashem. They literally expired out of the great love. So, already at the beginning of Parshas Achrei Mois, we're talking about the great love and yearning that a Jew can have for Hashem. Still in all, even though we're dealing with such a high level, seemingly there's nothing greater than that. There's nothing higher than that. I'm close to God. What could be more than being b'karvosam lifnei Hashem, than being close to God? So the Torah says no. After Acharei, even after you've reached what you think is the ultimate closeness to Hashem, there's still more to do. There's still further you can go. There's still greater heights you could reach. V'chol zeba b'tor tzivuyim v'azoros gam la'achrei Mois shnei bnei Aaron hainum shegam hamadrega dekarvosam lifnei Havaya ein o tachlis ha'avoida. That's not the ultimate, just becoming close to Hashem. Ela sheyesh la'achrei. There's something that follows it. There's something more than that. Lis alis oid ba'avoida gam la'achrei sheyegiel l'tshuka atzuma d'klois hanefesh. V'hainu she'ein hagbola b'yisalus midarga ledarga ba'avodas havaya. There's no limit. There's no end. Since God is infinite, so there's no limit to how far and how high we can climb. Ubagia adam gam lebadrega naus ma'oid hu yachov v'lachein tzarich la'alois oidi oiser. Always going higher. Always going for something more. It's very interesting that the Rebbe always brings down this Gemara that says, whoever has 100 wants 200. Now this is talking about physical things. He has $100, he has 100 zuz, he wants 200 zuz, he wants $200. And the Rebbe explains, why did Hashem put that into the nature of a person? So that we should use that nature for holy things. I shouldn't be satisfied and say, I did my share, I did my part. I davened today, I learned today, I did a mitzvah today, I gave tzedakah today. That's it. No. No one is satisfied with saying, I made $100 today and he's going to close up shop. No. If I can make another $100, sure, I want to make another 100. If I can make 400, I want to make 400. It's not like I needed to eat, but just a person is driven to go up higher and higher. Why is he driven to go up higher and higher? Because by himself, spiritually, the driving force of the neshama is something that wants to go up higher and higher. Sheba beremez b'Hashem Acharei. That's the meaning of the word Acharei. There's always after. There's never end. You never reach the end of the road. You've reached something, Achrei. There's afterwards. And what next? Okay, after that, there's again after. She'ainli stapik b'avodos v'aliyos b'kedusha ad atol shetzarich liyis achrei ze aliyah be'ilui ala ilui hakodim. Amnam havoida atzma v'akoyach hazeh sheyach allows b'aliyah built in mugbelas ba b'adgasha parshas Kedoshim. True, the principle is already in Parshas Achrei. But exactly what form does it take? That we see in Parshas Kedoshim. Hatam asher Kedoshim tiyu ad Kedusha built in Mugbelas canal uki Kodosh Oni Kedushasi lamayla mekdushaschem. Why can you be asked to constantly increase and go higher in holiness till an unlimited, infinite holiness? That's because I am holy. And since I am holy and you're doing it to connect with my holiness and I'm infinite, so therefore your steps and your growth has to be infinite as well. As high as you're going up, my holiness is still higher than your holiness. It's truly without an end. So now we're going to get back to the lesson. We said that this parsha is a lesson for every single Jew, regardless of what level the person is at. So he says in Daled, every man and woman, every never be satisfied with where I am in what I've accomplished in serving Hashem. If the person actually reached that level that he's close to Havaya, like it said in the beginning of Parshas Achrei, Parshas Achrei, only now you reached Karvasim of Havaya, you reach close to Hashem. Here's where we start. This is where the work begins now. Acharei. La'achar avoidosim madrigos akademis sarchlias avoida b'yeser seis or b'yeser rois he avoida the Kedoshim tiyu ki Kodosh Oni lalis l'mayla mayla b'hari kodesh. So, in elevation, in a sense, in going up, one can go up incrementally, or one can go up exponentially, or in an infinite type of way. So the Rebbe says, we are not satisfied with just incremental progress. The concept that the Rebbe says over here is, if I only make incremental movements, so then, since they have still a relationship to the initial place where I started from, then I didn't truly leave where I am. I didn't truly break out of where I'm at. For example, a ladder. When you're climbing a ladder, or you have different links in a chain, yet it's all part of the same ladder. It's all part of the same chain. So let's say if you climb a ladder, it could be a very tall ladder, and you get to the topmost rung, but that's where you stop, you're still connected with the bottommost rung, because the top rung of the ladder is still connected to the bottom part of the ladder. When have you really left that rung behind? When from that ladder, you go ahead and now you're getting on top of the roof, or you're getting on top of something else. Now you've completely disconnected. That's the same idea of what Parshas Kedoshim is about. It's not just enough Achrei. Once I've gotten close to Hashem, I still have to get closer and closer, but it has to be in a way of holiness, completely removed. Remove myself, disconnect myself from where I was before completely, not like a ladder where the topmost step is connected to the bottom. Hatzivoy vayirad Kedoshim tiyu sha'aliyas bekedusha tzarich liyas ba'ifim bilti mugbelas bekamus ha'aliyas ube'eches ha'aliyas. Both quantitatively and qualitatively, my ascents have to be in a way of holiness. Lis alis be'ili kazeh shehi bechinas Acharei legamri legabe madrega sholfanah shemadregase la'achar ha'aliyah he be'ein aroich ve'ein la'shayches l'mamodim matzavei ha'koidem. He's completely beyond and above the previous levels. It's in one of the footnotes he brings down, this is what's brought down Chassidus, the difference between the service of malachim, of angels, versus the service of the Jews. That angels, as much as they serve Hashem and as much as they're trying to increase their devotion to Hashem and love of Hashem and so on, but it's still limited. They're still like this person that's still on the same ladder. Only a Jew has the capability, not an angel, to be able to completely go and break out of all the boundaries, go up higher and higher without any limitations. Al pi anal tuven hashayches da Parshas Achrei v'Kedoshim la'inyan di Yetzias Mitzrayim asher pi roiv nikrois heim b'Shabbosos sheben Pesach l'Shvuos haynu b'azman hanimshach v'kosher liYetzias Mitzrayim. The majority of times, Achrei Mois Kedoshim are read in this time of year, during Sfira. Sometimes, the Rebbe points out in a footnote, Parshas Achrei will be read the Shabbos before Pesach. But most of the times, both Achrei and Kedoshim are after Pesach. Because Pesach is also about going outside of the limitations. Yetzias Mitzrayim, Chassidus always speaks about leaving the confines. Mitzrayim means from the word constraints and limitations, leaving that behind, exiting that. Yetzias Mitzrayim in Yonah Yetzia V'Aliyah. K'moshenamar Hamal Chomer Mitzrayim. Hashem rose you, took you up out of Mitzrayim. So it's about ascending. There's no comparison what we were like after being in Mitzrayim to before. Hein begashmi is physically ma'avdus l'cheirus. Ve'hein beruchni is ma'afela loyer God. We were a great light out of the darkness, completely incomparable. Now, this wasn't just a one-time event. V'yadua it's known shebechol dor v'dor b'chol yom v'yom chayiv adam liris atzme kilu yotza yom Mitzrayim. The Rebbe says that every single day we need to picture ourselves going out of Mitzrayim, which means as great as my yesterday was and as perfect and as wonderful I did yesterday in comparison today is considered confined. It's considered Mitzrayim. And I need to go and experience a new Yetzias Mitzrayim today. And tomorrow, I'm going to need to go out of Mitzrayim further again, because today, in comparison to tomorrow, is still Mitzrayim, still confined, still limited. So now, Valpiza Zayin. Now he's finally going to go back to the initial point that he said that in Kedoshim, there are two extremes. One extreme is Kedoshim means so holy, like the holiness of Hashem, that's completely above everything. But the other extreme, we said, is that it's talking about washing your hands before the meal and the final washing before benching. Seemingly, how does the two fit together? So it says, Aleph, one explanation in Kedoshim is Kodosh Oni B'tachlis. Yetzia v'yis'alus bilti mugbelas ad likdushasi shalamayla. You're going completely beyond everything. You're reaching Hashem's holiness. Beis, on the other hand, we said that there's a different explanation. Vehiskadishtem ve'yisam kedoshim is referring to dugmas pulos ma'im rishonim and ma'im achroinim. Why do we wash before eating bread? Why do we wash our hands before benching? Shemipnei hatumah, before the meal, we wash our hands to remove impurity. After the meal, we wash our hands, vazuma, to remove any dirt on our hands, any remnants of the food on our hands, v'sakonas melch sdoimis. Also, there is the salt from sdoim that can be very dangerous if it touches the eyes, so we also have to make sure that that's washed off. What does that mean? Down here. Dealing in the coarse existence. Not just the existence out of this world, but also dealing with the coarse existence down here. V'hainu lahadgish o lahoiros sha'avoid the Kedoshim tiyu b'malos achinailis kanal sheyechas v'chol b'nei Yisrael min hakotza l'kotza. This idea of constantly growing and going higher and higher in holiness applies to every Jew. Whether he's the holiest of Jews, completely removed from this world, similar to Hashem, or he's a Jew that's engaged with the world. He's eating, he's drinking, and he needs to wash his hands from impurity. He needs to wash his hands from the dirt of the meal. Elu shem kedoshim ufshatim mikol shaychus l'nyan olam haza ad le'elo shadayin asukim behem mamish ba'ofen hapashut in the most literal way. Val pi hayros ad morazok pisgam leben mit der Zeit. Like the Alter Rebbe said, we have to live with the times. We have to live with the parts of the week. Bizman shekoyrim v'loimdim Parshas Achrei Kedoshim. Yesh behem hayra b'chaim l'chol adam Yisrael. First of all, it's telling l'bal madrega gavoya shlo yom redai l'sals v'avidosim. Those that are on a very high level should not say, okay, I'm high enough. I don't have to reach for greater and higher. Also, it speaks to those, how about those people down the other side of the spectrum, the other extreme? They're completely immersed in the physical world. So they might say, Kedoshim to you, me? What does Kedoshim to you have to do with me? I'm busy eating, I'm involved in food, I have to wash my hands from food, and after and before, I'm immersed in the physical. So they say, Sha'al yiplu berucham, don't give up hope. That you're stuck in whatever low level you're at. Earlier we said that there's a Maimer Chazal, it says, Kedoshim tiyu ki Kodosh Oni. You shall be holy because I am holy. But the Chazal say, what does it come to tell you? That I am holy, it comes to tell you, Kedushasi l'mayla m'kedushaschem. As holy as you are, my holiness is higher still than your holiness. And therefore, we said earlier, you need to constantly go for more, and go for more, and go for more, because Hashem's holiness is infinite, so therefore I can grow and grow. But there's a deeper explanation of this Maimer Chazal that says, Kedushasi l'mayla mikdushaschem. That means a very interesting explanation. It says, Kedushasi l'mayla, my holiness above is mikdushaschem, from your holiness. When a Jew sanctifies himself, when I sanctify myself, so then that increases the sanctity and the holiness of Hashem. And this is Valderech HaPirush Dama L'maylo Mach. Know that what is above, know what is above is from you. It says in Pirkei Avos. You should know what's higher than you. But the Mizrich Maggid explains Pirush Da Kol Mashal L'maylo. Know that all things that take place above in the heavenly spheres, HaKol L'mach, everything is from you and everything is caused by you. So we have an impact not just on ourselves and our holiness, but we kaviyachol have an impact on Hashem. And this is a very important point as well to remember. A lot of times we sell ourselves short and we say, what is my little action going to matter? What's going to make a difference if I do this or do that? So we say, everything that's above is a result of down here below. That Kedushasi l'mayla, Hashem says, is derived from my holiness. So anything I do to increase in holiness, whether it's a minor thing, like washing my hands before eating and washing my hands before benching, or it's other great aspects of holiness, all of this impacts Hashem on the micro level, on my individual action. And that's how powerful the action of a Jew is.